Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest, zooming in from Corona, is Javier Vasquez. Javier Vasquez has served as the president and chief executive officer of Miguel's restaurants for over 20 years. His journey began at the heart of family entrepreneurship, working shoulder to shoulder with his parents and siblings in their inaugural restaurant in Corona, California, back in 1974. Javier's leadership has been the driving force behind Miguel's remarkable growth over the past 2 decades. As the primary visionary, he orchestrates every aspect of operations, spearheads strategic expansion initiatives, and navigates intricate real estate developments and acquisitions. Infused with a familiar spirit of calculated risk-taking and entrepreneurial zeal, Javier has propelled Miguel's to unprecedented heights, boasting a network of 22 quick-service Miguel's junior establishments and a flagship full-service dining experience at Miguel's California Cocina. Javier's commitment to excellence extends beyond the boardroom as he actively immerses himself in the frontline operations, ensuring that each customer's experience reflects the pinnacle of Miguel's dedication to quality, service, and sharing the love. Javier earned his bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business and was voted into California's Restaurant Association's Orange County Board of Directors in 2023. Recently, Javier has become a member of the Board of Directors for Junior Achievement of Orange County and Inland Empire. Currently resides in Southern California. Welcome, Javier.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome, Javier. So tell us a little bit what it was like growing up, working with your parents, and the vision and how you started thinking big or bigger.
Well, I think first, thank you for the opportunity to be here with your audience and enjoy it. I think a couple of things. As immigrant parents, when they come to the U.S. and they always have thoughts of improving themselves and the family, my parents felt the best opportunity to do that is opening a restaurant, to do that because they both were not formally educated. My dad dropped out of school in 7th grade, my mom in 6th grade. So, for them, education was the key to unlock success and growth. And so when they thought what opportunity they had to really help us go to college, they thought the restaurant business was an option for them. And they did really well with that, and they opened successful restaurants and all these things. But when I graduated from USC, my mom, I'm the youngest of 4, came to me and said, "Okay, we're not done. We're done growing Miguel's. We have 6 restaurants. We have more than enough. You graduated, so we kind of accomplished our goal." And I said, "Great, that's good. That makes sense." But then I looked back and said, "Well, they have a great business. They've been in business for more than 20 years in the restaurant industry. If you are in business more than a year, you're successful."
Right.
6 units, and they're doing really well, and they're customer great fan following. So I said, well, I told myself, if I'm going to work for someone else and grow their business, why just work with my family business and grow ours? And that's what I decided to do. So when I went to the entrepreneur program at USC, I used Miguel's as a business plan. And so at the time, the professors weren't very happy with that because it wasn't my original idea in some ways, correct? It was, entrepreneur plan, you're supposed to think of all these great things.
Yeah.
And I looked at it differently. I said, I have access to professors that can help me really develop a business plan I can use after college.
Right.
And a lot of times people go to college and what they graduate with is different what they actually do in life. And I said that doesn't make sense to me. So I said I wanted to do something different, and I did that. So I looked back and I said, I graduated. Then I graduated in 1997, and then 3 years later I became president of the company, and then I started growing the business in such a way that we have 24 locations now located in Southern California. and we grow at a conservative pace. We're not real hyper growth. We are still a family owned business. I mean, we own 12-hour restaurants via land, all those things. So we do have I did do some real estate development in that capacity. So anyway, so working with my family, obviously. So then I took over, and then started growing the business, and to where it is today.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story. Uh, starting from nothing and growing it, coming to this country, establishing a restaurant, which is one of the hardest businesses to establish. Like you said, if you make it a year, you are lucky because well, I don't know what the percentage is. It's probably super high of failure rate,
Yeah, pretty high.
like in the 90s, I think.
It's just astonishing. I tell people all the time, go look. My parents did the hard part. They started the business and they opened a second restaurant. Those are probably the two hardest things to start, and having no formal education, no formal way of doing this, they kind of learn the way.
Right.
That's the hard. That they did the hardest thing. I took it over when they had six. So
Yeah.
I don't take I can't say I created the business, but I took it what I learned from college, applied
Right.
that, and then grew the business. But would I have been successful? I'm not sure, because I'm not sure I was cut. I'm not sure I would have been if I had started a restaurant by myself day one.
Right.
I can't say yes or no, but I know that, like I told people all the time, they did the hard work. I just took it from there.
So let me ask you this. There's a lot of controversy out in social media that says you don't need college. But tell our audience, like, what kind of impact going to USC and learning, being in the business school, what did that teach you, and how did that open up your eyes and your ability to do what you do now?
So for me, I think I understand you're right. The college cost of going to college is expensive, all those things associated with it. Your pay scale doesn't justify the cost of going to college. But there are certain things that a college education will provide you. And for us, for me in particular, is really developing a plan and having to do all aspects of the business, an entrepreneur class. You have to learn, from finance and marketing to operational organization, all those things. You have to learn all these things in a short period of time. So for me, that was really applicable for what I was doing after college. The second thing that you forget, and I enjoyed, is obviously the social aspect of college, correct? And you'll have friends and friends that you develop in college that will help you eventually in your career also. So from the professional side of view, having the professors look at my business plan, having them critique it, pushed me around a little bit, really pushed me in the sense that this is not your idea. Why are you doing this? And then saying, fine, we're going to help you. And then using that business plan for almost 10 years after I graduated. Obviously, I modified it over time, but I use the core business plan the same. And then walking to a bank, a lender with a business plan that's been vetted by professors gave me an advantage over other people looking for money. Now, I didn't tell them that my professor looked at it. I said, this is a business plan that I have,
Right.
that I
Yeah.
developed. And that's a value of going to having education around you. You can go, yes, you can go online and write a business plan. I get that. But there's a sense of having professionals, at USC, all the professors at the time, I'm not sure anymore, were adjunct professors. So they were part-time professors. So they were actively involved in business all the time. And they weren't necessarily just, coming in academia. They actually gave you real life experiences. And that to
Right.
me was really valuable. And then the second, obviously, is having the friendships and developing, friends in that USC especially helped me. And to this day, we work together on certain things and certain aspects of our business. In some ways, that's another way to prepare yourself to do those things. So yes, I understand the cost of education is extremely high, and I was fortunate because my dad paid for it. So that's another thing that he was very adamant about paying for education.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate and blessed for that reason. And I know that fast forward to today, that's a very expensive proposition for parents. You said you have 4 kids in college.
Yeah.
Every time one graduates, you get a raise. Correct? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Woo.
Hey, I'm sure you used to have a full set of black hair too, correct? I have
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have no hair left. So so I always advise talk to my nieces and nephews the same thing. So look, do something that makes value that you're passionate about, that makes sense also, because that's important. That it makes sense to you. And you know, I have all my nieces and nephews. Right now, there's 6 of them, and all four have graduated from college. One is in college, and one's in high school. So if generationally, my parents' goal was to put my students in college, then second generation, third generation is not going to college. That's the other tone of all this. And her goal and my parents' goal is work, right? And so that tradition has continued. So we were able to break the cycle of in that of families of non-educated parents and then their kids being non-educated, and it's a cycle you want to break. And my parents broke that cycle.
Right.
And now, how do you adapt what you learn to grow your business and then provide the opportunity to my team members? So now we have 750 employees, and I always tell them the same thing. I say, look, you may not be at Miguel's forever, and I understand that, and I know that our industry is transitional jobs, but I want to teach you life skills that you can take to wherever you do. If you can walk up to if you're a kid at a cashier and you have to sell a drink to someone, that sales skill you always have to do the rest of your life. And to this day, I have to sell Miguel's to lenders, to other people to invest in Miguel's. And I have that same skill set that I can teach you as a first time job, the same skill set you can utilize the rest of your life. And in our industry, multitasking is very common because you multitask, you do different things. That multitask skill is a skill that I think a lot of young people can utilize in an effective way. Multitasking nowadays is texting and not paying attention, unfortunately, to people talking. So that's all I'm saying multitasking. I'm saying multitasking different things in your head, but being present in the conversation in there. But be able to do things at one time is a skill that in our industry is very necessary, and that could be a skill you can take on forever. So that's how I try to utilize. And then I tell my team, hey, there is career opportunities at Miguel's. We have team members at general managers. Our base pay is about 80 grand a year, and that's pretty good for a general manager generally that maybe has a high school education at a minimum. But we try our best to encourage our teams to continue learning. We have learning classes. We read books as an organization, those kind of things. But I know education sometimes is not the primary focus of people do what they have to live. So how do you provide the education opportunity and funds for them to live, but then in a comfortable way in a competitive market in California?
No, that's really interesting in what you do to nurture your employees, not just have them work for you, but also educate them. And that I would imagine that probably gives you the ability to not have as much turnover as other fast food restaurants.
Correct. So our turnover rate is about 30. Our turnover rate as of last month or this month is 30%. And that to me, that to the average person, that sounds high. But in reality, our industry is about 140%. That's an average.
Wow.
And we're at 30. So that means we're doing something right. Like culturally, we're doing something right. So all these things. So we're doing a team member survey, a engagement survey, correct? Those are all those little tricks and things you learn in college, right? How to grow a culture, how to grow a business, and those are skills that I wouldn't necessarily have. I didn't go to college. And so when I first graduated, what first thing I did, I took over CEO. I made our logos the same. Again, very basic tech, one-on-one marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, people assumed we sold Miguel's. The first thing I sold Miguel because now it looks professional. It's not mom and pop anymore.
Right.
My family, I go, look. The reality is, if we really want to grow Miguel's, we have to look back. We have to look bigger than what we are. And that was advice a professor told me, is that you're an entrepreneur, you are a small business owner, you have to look professional, look bigger than you are because you're competing against bigger brands typically. So I did that very clear that we have to look bigger than we are because if I walk into a developer and say pick me versus a national brand or a regional brand, they're going to naturally pick a national brand because of the credit to their brand, their company, the credit to their center, the people they bring. So I've had to tell my family, look, we have to look professional bigger than we are because we have to compete against national brands and regional brands. And over the time, we've done that. But the funny part of it, sometimes customers say, oh, you guys aren't mom and pop anymore. Although we're still family owned and still family operated.
Right.
After 50 years of business.
Yeah, no, that's impressive. what is like the one thing? Was there like one thing that you had to change to be able to grow?
Well, I think having the team around me to understand it's a team effort to grow a business and be consistent store to store. My dad was very about consistency store to store, and then having I spoke at a class the day at Cal State San Bernardino at the entrepreneur class, and I told the students the same thing. Look, if you rely on financials to start your business, that's not going to work. You need to have a strong story, and the financials need to support your story. You need to leave the story, not leave with financials. And I think that's what a lot of business owners do. They leave with financials, not the story. And that's I learned that if I'm consistent with my storytelling and I can tell you the story of the history, how we started, how we got here, and where we're going, as a person on your podcast, as a person in the bank, as a person, that same story is consistent, and that's why I have to learn how to say that with confidence, and I believe it, and that gives the team's confidence that we're doing the right direction, and that gives all our stakeholders confidence that we're going down the right direction, where we came from, where we're at, and where we're going. And if that story is consistent and that your numbers support that, then that's how you're able to grow your business and if you want to or not. And that's how I tell, people ask my advice all the time. I say, well, why do you want to grow your business? And if they say I want to make more money, then I generally say, well, then you're going to fail. Maybe you will in a short period of time, but longevity is about having a story that you believe in, a purpose that you believe in that will wake you up day in, day out. Financially, yes, if you have nice cars, nice things, those make things life easier. I get it. But if you live without a purpose and live without direction, you're really just living for monetary gain, and over time that won't satisfy you as a person, as a leader, in my belief.
Right. You got to have that why. That why. Why are you getting up in the morning?
Correct.
Why are you going to work? Why are you going to push through the difficult times? I guess just having a purpose and how it's going to impact somebody else, right? How are you going to help somebody else elevate them is the driver that'll get you through any storm.
Yeah. So my mindset is, look, we're a second generation business. My parents started the business. I took it over. The probability of the next leader, be it Vasquez or relative or my niece nephew, is slim right now. And that may be in 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So the probability that the next leader in Miguel's will be a non-family member is probably pretty strong. So how do you grow a company that's family-owned, operated for so many years, and then inspire the next generation of leaders to continue the growth of the company that aren't necessarily related to you? And those are the things you have to learn at any company. That you have to learn how to inspire leaders, how to honor your past, and how do you honor your past and look to and use that past to design a plan for the future.
Right. So that's something interesting that you brought up. How do you get the next generation interested potentially in taking over that business? Or is that even possible?
So related to me, so what I've done is what I did about 4 or 5 years ago, I have board meetings with my niece and nephews. So what does that mean? So I have a board of advisors, I have a board deck that I use with my board of advisors twice a year, get the same deck and review it with my niece and nephews and get the perspective. I've been doing that for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So they understand there's opportunities in this business besides being in a leadership role. And that's why I wanted to make sure the clarity of that. And they're all pretty young still. So the goal here is that they go work for someone else for a couple of years, 4 or 5 years, and then they're mature enough to understand they come back to that business or not. That's okay. But at least they understand the aspects of the business. They expressed lukewarm interest at best, of course. Um, and I was very clear to them that the reality is you don't have to be CEO to be involved in this business.
Right.
I have a nephew that's looking at maybe coming back to look. I'm not looking for you to be a CEO. Am I looking for a family member to be in the board of directors? Of course. To give a sense of stability and family run business? Of course. But I have leaders in my organization that are more qualified than my niece and nephews right now. So that's just create nepotism that I don't want to do.
Right.
But there is opportunity for them to grow into the business if they want. But the reality is going to work for someone else for a while is probably better off, which I didn't do that, or my siblings, and we all regret that. That should have probably worked for someone else for at least a couple of years, 4 or 5 years, to get perspective from an employee employee perspective, correct? Not always being a boss. I did work for a congressman for 6 months internship. That was great, but it's a lot different than, being an employee, having to be reviewed, having to do all the things that you do as an employer-employee relationship. And so
Right.
that's one thing that we didn't do. But the next generation, that's a requirement that you need to work for someone for 4 or 5 years. And then after 4 or 5 years, we'll talk and then we'll come back, we'll discuss, and then we'll see. And then what role that look like. But I want to be clear to them too. It's not necessarily running a restaurant, although you have to learn how to run a restaurant. That's fundamental of our business. But there are aspects of business you can grow your career in also. And that's the benefit of having a large organization. You're not running a restaurant, you're just going to grow a business and grow it.
That's really interesting. Having four boys, two of them wanting to get into my business. One of the things that I kind of didn't know how to do is how do you integrate them? Because I wanted them to be able to elevate everything, the business, their knowledge. And I felt like I'm limiting them to my knowledge if I bring him in right out of college. So I asked many different business owners, how do you guys do it? Many of them brought him in straight from where they're growing up to, getting in and just working in the business, working from the bottom up. I said, okay, but they don't really have to do that. And much smaller group actually did what you just said, where you're like, hey, you have to go out and work out of the business on your own, kind of prove yourself, learn other skills, get trained by somebody else. And when you are able to have those skills, then you can come in and add value. And I think that's probably the best path. Like you just said, you wish you guys would have done that, because it gives them a different perspective and it gives them different skill sets that can actually bring in, maybe take it to that next level.
Yeah, I tried to convince my nephew to work for a competitor of ours, a big competitor of ours. I won't say who, and he wouldn't do it because he's like, no, why not? It'd be great. But jokingly, it was like, jokingly, half jokingly, I was like, come on, go work for them because I want to see. It's
Yeah, they do it right.
that's what they do differently than we do. And he was like, no, I feel comfortable doing that. I go, that's okay, but it didn't work out. It was fine, but I think there's value in that, tremendous value in that, done correctly. And then again, I don't having the weekly, having meetings twice a year in a board meeting environment because these kids may own the Miguel's at some point or not, and so having them engage that level in a little bits has at least opened the door and mind for it.
Right.
And so I asked them certain things. So my niece might help me. She graduated MIU. She has a 3 month gap in this job or next job. So I'm asking her. I'm going to ask her to develop a social media internship program for me. So she's engaged enough to get a taste of it, and then she goes to do her thing. So little tidbits of projects that they can help me with. That's what I'm also doing too, and things that they enjoy. So
Right.
so she wants to do social media marketing for retail brand, and that's great. And so she went to EYU. She went to uh, one of the best schools in NYU. And called best one of the best. I always say that outside USC, but one of the best business schools in the country.
Right.
She has going to EY. That's great. So obviously in consulting. So I'm saying, look, this is like a main consulting job. Come in, analyze our social media, develop a program that I can have interns drive my social media differently than I would.
Right.
So then she does that. She'll maybe do it for a short period of time. She's done, goes at her job, works for EY, finds out working for a big EY company is miserable. Just kidding, of course. And
Right.
she said, hey, I want to come home and do something different, or I want to work part time because I'm going to get married and kids, whatever it is. And
Right.
that's where the connection makes. Versus you gotta come up from here. If you don't work from here, I don't like you. I don't talk to you anymore. And
Right.
that's not a good situation. That's not a good situation for anyone to be in. And I had the same question presented to me at the class recently, and I said, look, the one thing that we didn't do either, we didn't have a succession plan in place, or a family constitution, whatever you want to call it, and that outline your expectations and what your son's expectations are. It's documented. It's agreed to. It's a document. It's signed off on. It's reviewed every year, every 6 months. That way you're aligned with your sons, and that way it's not like, okay, you're not doing what you said, or it's not working out, or it's great. I don't know what it is. And it's very clear to your team. I'm not sure how big your company is, but it's very clear to everyone that this is an expectation, this is a role, this is what he's going to do in this time period. That way, everybody understands the growth trajectory, and it's not a secret. It's not like bring your son in. He's my son. He's gonna get everything. This is what he has to do in these steps. And then it's a buy-in from the organization, not just you and your son. It's everybody understands. And that's why I told the team recently. She had the same question, family business. Go like that's the thing we didn't do well, and it created a situation where you have a founder and two sons and your team, and if there's conflict between the founder and two sons, the team pays the price for that.
Yeah, very true.
And then they feel that they feel they're never going to be able to grow unless the dad dies, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case either. So it's a very interesting thing. Family business adds a whole nother complexity to all this that we can go on and on about that. But
yeah,
it's a very, very generic answer. I mean, simple answer, but I would document or succession plan, or they call it, now they call it family constitution, something like that. Some people call it that.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called, it's just document.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense because it lays out a clear plan for them. And also for the founders, right? If your mom and dad founded the business, you're in control now. It's like you want to establish something that the business can continue to grow and provide for the family. At the same time, whether you guys decide to pay education for the children, the nieces and nephews, or whatever, right? It just putting it together and trying to keep it in the family and helping the family grow and using outside help to get you there as well.
Correct. So, like in Latin culture, I mean, I'm just now stereotyping a little bit, but it's always oldest son gets the business, correct? And my dad had experiences, his family businesses, his friends who did that, and they would pass, and the oldest son would take over the business. Doesn't mean the oldest son is qualified or most best at it. And all businesses that my dad saw that growing up, they all have closed or they're out of business. So my dad said, I want to put you as CEO. I'm still alive. I'm still active. But I want to see how you do because I want to make sure that I can pass it on to you and you may not be qualified. And that's how we did that. Now that created a whole nother level of complexity with that, but that's what he wanted to see because last thing he wanted to do is pass away and give it to one of his kids and not knowing the kid wanted or not wanted, and then what happens after the death. Now that's another level of controlling, but at the same time, there's some sense to it also because my dad, I can name my dad's friends who passed, and the business went to the oldest son or oldest sibling, and those businesses are not longer exist anymore.
And I think you have to start this transition way before you die. Like your dad said, he's tested you, he brought you in. You got to do that. And if you have the desire, because you have to have the desire to take over the business, and you have the education to do it, then that puts your parents at peace because they know that the transition's already made while they're alive. Because I do believe that if you die and your sons or daughters, whichever, get a business, they're like, what do I do now? They don't know, right? It just doesn't happen like that. You know all the intricacies of the business. You know all your employees, what they do. You put somebody in there that doesn't know, it's going to collapse.
Correct. And I think that's unfortunately happens more often than we think, but that's what, if there's family businesses, colleges have it. Cal State, I'm involved in Cal Baptist University, Cal State Fullerton, they have family offices or family education, and they always talk about that generational passing, all those things. And again, is it family growth? Is it exit strategy? Is it what's you designed to do? And then you kind of work backwards from there. And then things change over time, right? Personalities change, people change, things happen.
Right.
And so, for me, I tell my team, look, I give myself 10-year run, 10 more years. If I feel I'm deteriorating or my mental capacity deteriorating or I don't have it anymore, I need to pull out because it's not fair for the organization to make sure that I'm here all the time because it's not fair for anyone that's worked their lives, and Miguel's also. So I want to give myself a shelf life also. and I give
Right.
myself a shelf life because I think and I say that out loud because it's very clear that I'm okay with talking about at some point if I feel like I can't do it anymore, I need to be able to say that, or someone says, "Hey, Javier, you're slipping, or maybe you're slowing down, or maybe you should do something different," and I need to
Right.
be okay with that, and I need to be okay with having a conversation with different levels of organization.
Right. So here's a magic question for you. If somebody who's listening is a business owner, kind of being in that position, they grew a successful business, doesn't have to be super large. They have children that they want to pass it on to. They don't have a family constitution. They don't have a succession plan, and they don't know how to make that transition. What could they do without having to go back to school and learn all that? What's a good resource that they can have to be able to put all these things in place?
Well, I think there are books and you can read about this online. You can look at, I mean, just you pull things up pretty simple, talk about outlines so you can do it. I have a board of advisors that help me do this kind of stuff. I guess we're a big organization, but I mean, you just look at the plan constitution, session plans, and kind of get an understanding of how it works and read a little bit about it. And I think that's important to understand that. And of course, there's the consultants out there that do this for a living. It's expensive, costs money. It depends on where you're at in your career, it may be worth it. Because sometimes having a third party mediator, I shouldn't say mediator, a third party helps the conversation go along a lot further.
Right.
I know a family, and I won't disclose who the family is, but they're a very large family, and they have a priest is a negotiator. They have a family priest that comes to the family meetings, and the priest is a mediator. And why the priest stays a priest? Because the priest always reminds the family, don't do things for monetary growth. Don't do things for growth for money. Do things to grow the business. Like what makes sense, correct, for society.
Right.
And then that model has worked for them, and they're huge. They're a massive company, and it's interesting. But the family, the Simmons get along 100%? Of course not. But the priest has mediated these conversations for years. And so I'm not saying that's the best resource, but a third party
Right.
mediator would sometimes help that. And that there are colleges out there. That Cal State Baptist University has professors of that. Cal State Fullerton. I'm not sure USC has that, but colleges have that. And there's things there's relatively inexpensive resources to find that. And you'll find that these professors, that's their livelihood. That's what they want to do, and they use that as an experiment for their classes. Correct? That's what they're there to teach family business owners how to do this. And for a fee, of course, they'll help you with this, but that's another resource that may be relatively more price sensitive for that person.
Right.
They have family, and those are resources I would use because they have experience with other small, large size companies.
Right.
But the third, I would always recommend, if it could, someone the third party because that does not make it personal. But both sides have to be open to third party critique or criticism.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We have to be open. Like none of us have the perfect operation or know the perfect way. And like you said earlier, if you feel like you're not competent anymore, you have to be willing to step down. You have to think the benefit of the business and the family, not just you. Right. And so to be able to go out and hire somebody and they're going to tell us, hey, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong, and maybe you should do this. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the learning process of being an entrepreneur and growing from that. It's the growing pains, right? It's the growing pains that we call it. That it's just part of the process and part of the journey, right? So then, so as we wrap up our interview, we're already in Q2 of 2025. What exciting plans do you have for the rest of the year?
Well, at this point, it's interesting. Obviously, we have a lot of things going on with many innovation, those kind of things, but just try to navigate the current pressures of headwinds coming our ways. I mean, I don't want to say it's exciting, but what I've learned over the years, and one of the things that outside COVID, of course, was any business plan, any plan you have to be able to pivot and quickly. And we are in that pivot mode again. Since COVID, it's been 5 years of pivoting. The best, see, we have a plan every year. We have an 18-month plan. Last year we do it in June. So last year in June, I didn't think I'd be talking to you about tariffs, about all these things going on. And I had to pivot for that and learn and adapt that and what I do, how I adapt that, and how I do many engineering to offset the cost. And so, unfortunately, the exciting part is just surviving. Unfortunately, this is the way it is right now. And there's no one taught me how to do this. It just, you learn from experience. And then one of the experiences I said is understanding you have the best intentions, but you have to pivot. So right now I'm going to a marketing plan. Guess what? We got to pivot the plan because the cost of our tariffs are impacting our menu costing. So the items that we all intended to have maybe great items to sell are no longer available, or they're going to be too expensive. So they have to pivot now. So therein lies the exciting. It can be exciting. It's stressful. It's just part of the nature of business right now.
Yeah, I know. No, that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, thanks, Javier. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay.
And if somebody is listening that would like to get a hold of you and learn more about your restaurants or work or whichever way, how could they get a hold of you?
Just my email address. It's yeah, you can put Javier@migueljr.com.
Great. Thanks so much again, Javier, for coming on. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com and follow us on your favorite channel. Thanks so much, Javier.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.